if you get out there even 7 days and you're intentional and you put in the work. So
Let me add to that though. 7 days for the scouting and the
yep.
hanging, but 365 days I'm focused on whitetail. So when the kids go to bed, I'm focused on whitetails. After they get dropped off at school, I'm focused on whitetails as much as I can away from my job, my wife, stuff like that. Any free time that's just dad's time, that is whitetail time. So you won't see me at a barbecue.
Welcome to the dojo, everybody. Come on in and take a seat at the mat, kick off your shoes. This is part of the Do It Now series. And we started off in January with the setting goals for the year. And then I got tied up in February. So we're going to try to mesh two of the Do It Nows into this one. And they really kind of go together. So what you first heard there was Brian Rogers, and he was talking about Whitetails 365. And even when he's not in the woods, he's doing something whitetail related. And that really is the goal of this series, is that to keep our minds on Whitetails 365. It's geared for the individuals who maybe don't have that wall mounter buck on the wall yet. And so if you're more experienced and you've knocked down, a few bucks and you've had some success, then this series might not be for you. But I think there's a lot of us out there who are still trying to, get that first buck on the wall. And I hope this will help you. So what we're doing right now for March is we're going to get out and put boots on the ground. We're going to scout. And right now, something that's really fun and popular is shed hunting. But I want you to listen to Brian Dombrowski and hear what he has to say about shed hunting first.
A lot of the postseason scouting, I can follow, I can see people's tracks. A lot of people are looking for sheds out there right now. Or you're looking for sheds. And I can tell they're looking for sheds because their boot tracks are not looking at any of the sign. And, they're just looking for that, that bone on the ground.
Do you shed
But
hunt?
I do, not that much. I find a lot of sheds, but it's because I'm, scouting, and I would, I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. You know what I mean? What do you do with all the sheds you find?
So you heard there, Brian doesn't look for sheds. He's out scouting and he finds sheds that way. So what I'm going to say is if you haven't gotten that wall mounter yet, and that's your goal, then I'm going to say don't shed hunt right now. Don't shed hunt this year. Go out and try to find the sign needed to kill that buck this year. Okay. So when we go out, we're going to look at general stuff and we're going to dive into it a little bit more. But what we're going to focus on, because I want to remind you, we're scouting for the time period that we're going to hunt. Okay. And so if our goal is to get that first buck on the wall, then I'm going to advise you to skip the early season, to skip bed hunting, and trying to get in on those bucks. Now, if you're in a state where you have an early opening in September, and you have a couple weeks before those bucks shift, and so I'm thinking of maybe like Nebraska, September 1, then you're going to want to look into some techniques on early season buck bed hunting and catching those beds coming catching those bucks coming from bed to food. But for most of us who open up in October, that is already done. And not to say you can't get it done in the early season. You definitely can. I do believe that. But again, we're talking about getting that first buck on the wall. Okay. So we're going to put our effort into our most return on investment. And that time period is going to be during that pre-rut last week of October into rut of November, the first 2 weeks of November. We're going to focus on that time. Now, that may shift a little bit depending on where you are in the country, but if you're in the Midwest, those time frames tend to be pretty close to when the action's going to be. So that's what we're scouting for. We're scouting for that rut sign and where to set up. Okay. We're not going to focus on killing one particular buck. we are going to focus on where some of those, if we're looking for like 120 inch, 110 inch buck and bigger, where are those deer going to be during that time frame? And I think that's really important because there's a lot of different sign out in the woods, and what we have to get good at is determining that sign. Is that sign laid down, preseason? Is it laid down in October? Is it laid down around the rut? And so that's what we're going to be looking for. So the areas that we're going to focus on, and I'll go into more detail a little bit later, we're going to be stopping in, having a bunch of different clips from some of the people who've already done the podcast with us, and then one from a friend of mine who sent me some videos that I think is really shows why we're doing preseason scouting right now. But we're going to focus on finding bedding areas, and that's doe bedding areas, all right? Because we're going to try to catch a buck moving from bedding area to bedding area. Okay, so doe bedding area. So when I talk about doe bedding areas, I'm talking about the complexes, the general area where does bed. We don't need to find the exact doe bed, but bedding. So the bedding complexes, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for scrapes, but the scrapes we're looking for are the ones that get used year after year. They're going to have an indent to them. They're going to be dug out multiple years in a row. They're going to have multiple licking branches on them. If you're not really familiar with scrapes or what to look for, just go ahead and pop that in YouTube, and you're going to find plenty of information out there on scrape hunting. And I'll even try to link some really good videos for you on some of these subjects so you can go and study so you know what to look for. But again, with the scrapes, we're looking for ones that are indented. We're looking for multiple licking branches that have been around. You can tell because the edges are dead and they've been dead for a time. We're looking for runs, and we're looking for deep runs, which right now is a great time to find those, because when you find those deep runs, you can follow them all the way back to bedding. We're looking for rubs. And we also want to walk the border of our property. So if you're going to go out and scout now new property, okay, maybe that was part of your goal, to find some public or to find some new property. We're going to walk the boundaries of that property and mark any of the big trails that are going in and out of that property. If it's property that you've hunted for a long time, go ahead and re-walk the boundaries of that property so you can see how deer are coming in and out of that property. It's going to be really helpful because you can follow those runs that are leaving your property back to bedding, if you have bedding on the piece that you're hunting. So that's kind of what we're going to focus in on. I'm going to jump in periodically and play different clips. The next clip I'm going to play for you is from Chris Grant. He is a absolute killer here in Michigan. If you walk into his house, he has, bucks lining all the way around his living room into his bedroom. He's had a lot of success. I had the pleasure of hunting with him early season in Nebraska, and he got it done within a half hour down there and killed a full velvet 130-inch buck. This guy just knows how to read deer sign, and he sent me a couple of videos I want you to check out right now.
So this is what you can find, and you don't even know. I probably kicked this deer out of here, but you can see where I stepped here, and you can see right here in this frozen mud that this was kicked up right here. A deer just ran out of here, or came through here this morning. So right now we're in late February, and I'm following this edge. This is all thick cattails beyond this high browse, and this is just like a high ridge. I'm just following these trails, and this time of the year with the water being up a little bit, you can just see where these trails are a little bit more than what you could the summertime. So that, scouting during February, March, early season, you can pick up on all this. And if you turn around and look behind me, you can just see the path that they're using through here. I mean, you can just see how thick it is. Just 100 yards behind me, I got up onto some higher ground and they just scraped all over the place. Zero human pressure so far back in here.
All right, so Chris is walking through a swamp right now. And so he's in swamp country, which is lowland, and then the water has kind of come down a little bit, and he's able to see these high points throughout the swamp. But there's a couple things I want to point out in that video, and hopefully you are watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to it, I'll try to paint a picture for you. So he's walking through a really thick swamp, and he's following a thick line of edge. So the swamp where he's at's a little bit more open than where this real thick bedding type of habitat is. And he's walking right down that line. He's following a run, like I had mentioned earlier. Now you can use this in a lot of different situations. You can use this in hill country. You can use this in big woods. You can use this in farm country. You know, we're finding edge where bedding is, you know. So if you're in hill country, which we'll have Ryan Glitzky kind of talk about a little bit later, you know, you're looking for clear cuts, that's bedding. You know, if you're in hill country, you may be looking for the leeward side of a hill. And so leeward means you have wind coming over top of the ridge. On the other side where the wind goes over, that is the leeward side of the ridge. So deer are able to sit there, look out with the wind coming behind their back. And so you're looking for thick bedding edge on that ridge, the side of the ridge there, in a swamp where Chris is at. You know, it's just where thick meets thicker. You know, that's the line there. And so he's walking this line, and he's just following these trails through there, and they're just really sticking out right now because, you know, all of that other foliage is beaten down on the ground so you can see these trails. So this is a perfect time to get out in the woods and kind of follow these trails around. The next video is Chris again, and he's talking about a buck bed that he comes across. So I want you to go ahead and watch that, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit.
Okay, I want to do a little short video here. Last video, I'm following this trail, higher ground, on the outside of this high browse. And right here, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm coming up onto a very high point and it's real thick. Right here, there's a nice bed. I got a trail that comes in right here, and they just kind of hit this high spot, and they come through here in a couple different spots. I haven't even walked over there. There's probably a scrape under this little white oak, but this is a high point. You can see right through there. There's a good bed. Now look, I haven't even been in here yet. Rub. Bed. It's a long bed. There's a rub there. There's some older rubs there from previous years. This is a buck bed. And he's up high and he can see all around him, where it's all a little bit more open. What an advantage point. I gotta mark this. This is definitely a buck bed here.
So the reason why I wanted to show you the video from Chris there, finding the buck bed, is just to show how easy the sign is to see right now. You know, he was pretty far back and he could see that buck bed from far away, and was able to get up there and verify it. So, you know, obviously if you find a buck bed while you're scouting, you want to mark that. But again, I'm really wanting us to focus on our highest odds right now. So if you have struggled to find success in the woods, and we're looking to get that first buck down, or if you're looking to get consistency with putting bucks down, then, you know, I think to kind of, we don't want to jump into buck bed hunting because I feel like it's putting the cart before the horse. And so let's get some consistency with killing some bucks down. And then again, our best odds for that are during the rut, you know, time period. And so that's what we're going to continue to focus on. I'm going to play one more clip from Chris, and I think it's some really good advice about what to do with all the information that you're finding, and kind of how to build a strategy around that information. So let's watch Chris.
All right, guys, I'm out here postseason scouting. It's February 24th, 25th, I don't know. Anyhow, I'm sitting here taking a break, and I'm taking it all in. And there is nobody out here. It just blows my mind that I don't see vehicles up parked where I'm at. I'm down scouting swamps, and late February, March, it's a primo time to scout for deer. You can see mudded down trails, high ridges, in and out of water pockets. You could just see so much further with the foliage down. And this is my favorite time of scouting. And what I'll do is I'll take this information and I'm marking all this on my OnX. Well, I'm using my hunt stand right now because it comes in better. But do this postseason scouting, put in your time, and mark everything that you see. And then come September, go to those hottest areas of the most sign you found. Whether it's historical or last season's sign. It just gives you an advantage point to getting on areas a lot quicker, and you can get in and out without wasting a bunch of time. Check them out one time, early September, when the rubbing season starts hitting. You'll find scrapes, mark that stuff, put a game plan together.
All right. So Chris gave us some really good advice there, and that's to mark everything that we're finding and put it in our OnX or whatever mapping system you're using on your phone, and then come back in September to those hot areas. So like mid-September, and check back and see if new sign is being laid down. And that's going to give us kind of reassurance that what we found is still is active and a good spot to be. So again, we are out there right now. We're scouting for doe bedding, scrapes and rubs outside of that doe bedding. Heavy runs will lead you, hopefully, to bedding as you follow those. And so that's going to be our game plan. We're going to come back and hunt this in the last week of October to the first 2 weeks of November. And we're going to sit downwind side of this doe bedding. And if we can find rubs and a scrape, we're in the money. That's where we want to be. Ideally, there is something funneling these deer through that section from doe bedding to doe bedding. If you can sit in a funnel, which is a pinch point, then you're going to be really in the money. So we're going to talk about diversity and the importance of diversity in terrain and into the different plant life that's there. And so Ryan Glitzky is going to talk about the importance of diversity. Can you give some examples of that diversity, what that looks like when you're out in the woods?
I mean, like I said, that does come down to location dependent.
Yep.
Say the Big Woods Mountains. I'm always looking for, clear cuts, mountain laurel, anything like that. A ridge with greenbriers on it or something like that. It could be a river bottom, a creek bottom, any kind of structure like that. There could be some diversity. And I always tell guys, I'm always looking for the habitat and terrain diversity coming together in one location when I come for my stand setups. But when you get in a farm country, Nat, I mean, you look at any type of farm country, even in the Midwest, you're going to have all your blocks of timber, your inside corners, your hedgerows, your overgrown pastures. Like me, if you get in a farm country, you give me an overgrown pasture, like an overgrown field, man, that is money. I've killed some great bucks here in PA, actually hunting farm country, killing them out of areas like that. But that's just a ton of diversity. When you look at an area like that, that's the kind of stuff I'm always trying to hone in on.
Okay, so you heard Ryan there talk about the different diversity and what we're looking for when we go out there. The reason why I play that clip is what I find, even in my early journey, is I would walk out to the woods and I would look and I'd go, this looks like a good spot, but nothing there. I wasn't reading the sign. It just looked good to me. And a lot of times why it looked good to me was because I could see for a really long, um, ways. And for a bow hunter, that does nothing for you. You may be able to see far away, but most likely the deer that you're after, or a buck that you're after, isn't going to walk in open country like that. Deer are survivalists. They want to stay where they can move, but yet hide if they have to quickly and get away. If they're caught in wide open woods where there's no diversity, then they're in trouble. So they're not going to do that during the daylight. You may find sign in these areas, but that's laid down at dark. So we want to avoid wide open areas. We want to avoid monoculture. It's just all oaks or it's just all maple. We need a diversity. Deer are creatures of edge. They are going to walk on that edge, and edge is found with diversity. So the importance of that cannot be understated, or overstated. We have to find that thicker outside of bedding. Again, you're looking for rubs outside of bedding, scrapes outside of bedding. When it all comes together, that's when we got to start figuring out why it's all there and what to do. And Ryan's going to talk about what he does, which I think is a really good practice once we find this. So let's listen to Ryan and hear what he has to say. It sounds like to me as you're putting a puzzle together.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And sign, whatever that may be, if it's a scrape, rub line, just heavy runs, that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're putting, I go in an area, I got, multiple runs coming together. I see trails, and we know bucks. Sometimes they travel them, sometimes they don't. That has to play into it. But there's some edge and transition there. You got trails there, you got rubs there, you got scrapes. I will take, like, when I get in a situation where I start getting spidey senses, I will walk every one of those trails out or terrain features out and 100, 200, 300 yards and connect those dots on a bigger scheme. Like that's on the macro level when I really start to break it. I mean, it's still on the micro level, but at the macro level, looking out, like on Google Earth, okay, I'm looking at a block of timber that's a half mile chunk, but especially in the Big Woods Mountains where everything's a lot vaster and bigger, I will pick all that apart and bring that into that micro level, that one central location, why it's all coming right there. And then that'll help me. Why is that sign there? Why is this location? Get my sixth sense going. I put all that together.
So you heard Ryan there talk about how once he gets into an area where he sees all the sign that he's looking for us, that's bedding, rubs outside of bedding, scrapes outside of bedding. Once we get into that location with some runs running into there, he walks everything out like 300 yards. So he's following those trails out. He wants to know why. Why are the deer using this area? For us, it's where are they coming from when they come back to bedding, or when the buck is cruising during that time period, that rut time period. Where's he going to come from? And so walking these trails back, are going to help you understand why you're hunting that area even more. And I think that's the dividing factor for people who consistently find success and people who struggle, is that in the past when I was struggling, I would find sign and then I would just set up on it. And I wasn't asking why. Why is this sign here? And I was very limited on my ability to be consistent. So once I started to kind of put this together like a puzzle and find out the why, then my success grew exponentially. And so the other part about this on why we're going to walk everything out once we find this area. And by the way, when you find one area, it's not enough. All right. You want to keep walking and finding multiple areas that you can use on different winds. And, in case you blow an area out or you get there and somebody else is there, if you're hunting public, having multiple spots is important. All right. So we want to find, half a dozen of these at least locations, which you can find. There's enough public out there that you can do this. You just have to put in the work. And so the other reason why we are walking everything back is so we can find out our best access. And this is also something that I think separates people who have consistency and people who don't, is that they think about what they're disturbing as they walk to their stand. And you will disturb some deer. You lay down scent and they can tell how long it's been since you walked through. Don't let that trip you up too much, but we are going to try to find the access that allows us to get in with the least amount of disturbance. And you're going to mark your way in to those locations. And it doesn't hurt to even look for a tree at that time and find out which tree you're going to get in. Take a picture of that tree, mark it on your OnX. There's a little note section where you can take pictures. Do that. Take a picture of that tree as what it looks like when you're walking up to it. And then track yourself back from that tree, probably to the main 2-track that you're using to walk in, or back to your car. So you can follow that same trail when you go back there. So there's a lot to do here, but this is what it takes to put that first buck on the wall, and then after that to build off of this so you have consistency. Recap of what we're trying to accomplish. So again, this is so we get our first wall mountable buck on the wall, or we start to develop consistency in killing bucks. So we're going to go out, we're going to scout either new property or the property that we've had. I would suggest picking up new property as well. And if that's public, that's a really good option. The more you can learn to hunt public, the more options you're going to have, as hunting land gets harder and harder to obtain. So we are going to go out and scout, and we're going to scout for the rut time period or pre-rut time period. So the last week of October into about the 15th of November. That is the time frame that we plan to strike and go in for the kill. We're going to stay out of these areas until that time period. So I'm not saying don't hunt at all. If you want to hunt other areas that don't impede on this, then that's fine. Just make sure that you're not messing up your area for, your best odds, which for us right now will be during the rut. Now you may hear other people say, no, I prefer early season because I can pattern a buck and I can, do all these things, and the rut kind of makes it harder. That's a next level, technique. And we have to first, learn how to get bucks down consistently before we go to more advanced techniques. So I'm not saying that those ways don't work, but I'm saying for us right now, the return on investment for our time and the bang for our buck is going to be during this rut time period. All right. So I'm going to break down what we're looking for again, or what we're going to do. So once we get to the area, we are going to walk the perimeter and mark beaten down trails. So that's step number 1. Get to our property, walk the perimeter, and mark all of the beaten down trails. And then step 2, we're going to walk those trails back to find doe bedding. Now, I just want to take a moment here and say what I wish I would have done is in February went over map scouting. I'm going to put some links into that because I think you can identify doe bedding using map scouting, and that's just going to put you even further along in the game is if you can identify those areas that look like doe bedding complexes, and then go check them out for yourself. So that's one way to find doe bedding. The other way to find doe bedding is what I'm saying right now. Walk the perimeter and then walk those trails back until you reach doe bedding. So what is doe bedding? Well, for us, it's just going to be a thick area that we think deer can get into and bed down without being seen, with having some protection, having the wind in their advantage. So how I identify that really is a lot of the tracks going in and out of that thick stuff. If you see a bunch of smaller, tracks going in and out, a lot of deer poop is when I see a bunch of tracks with deer poop, I'm feeling pretty good. Right now, you can go in that bedding. You can blow it out. It's okay. It's going to be okay when you come back next year, as long as you don't keep going in and blowing it out. But go in and check it out. And doe bedding, so buck bedding, it's going to be one buck bed most likely by itself. Doe bedding, they tend to bed in a circle. So they kind of look around 360. So you're going to see multiple beds around. And that'll kind of verify it for you. But again, we're just it's a little bit of guesswork when we're looking at doe bedding, but you can verify it by going in and seeing those beds, which are matted down. You can get in there and see the hair. But it's not so important that we know where each bed is, but the complex. That's what we're looking for. So step one, walk the perimeter, mark all the trails. Step two, take those trails back to doe bedding, verify that it's bedding. And then we're looking for doe bedding that has scrapes and rubs outside of that bedding. Okay. And that can be fresh, somewhat fresh from this year. It's going to glow a little bit more, the rubs are. Or you can find historical data, which is old rubs, which you can tell because they're dark, kind of deadish looking, scarred up trees that are starting to heal over top of it a little bit. If you find both rubs from last year and historical, then you're in the money. You found a really good spot. We're looking for those scrapes that have been worked out, not just one that a little buck ran by and is kind of, just for the heck of it, throwing up a little scrape. We're looking for, scrapes. They don't have to be huge car hood scrapes, but, a good size scrape that is indented, has multiple licking branches. The licking branches are older. You can tell they've been kind of gnawed on and dead. You may have some that are fresher that are hanging down as well. That's good. So now that we've walked the trails, we found the bedding, we found bedding that has scrapes and rubs. And this entire time we're marking all of this stuff on our onX or whatever app you use. Then we are going, once we can find that spot, we're going to do what Ryan had said, and that's to walk backwards. We're going to walk those trails that we're seeing come to this bedding location, and we're going to walk those back. And the reason why we're walking them back is we want to know how the deer are using that area, where they're coming from when they're going to bedding, so we don't get busted in our tree stand. And so we can decide the best way to get into our tree stand. And just so we know which way, we need to really pay attention during that rut. The other thing is when we're walking those trails back is that we potentially may find another bedding spot. And now you've got bed to bed. And so even more likely that you're going to see a buck, because a buck is going to, try to conserve his energy as much as he can during that time period. So if he can hit a trail that, hits multiple beds, then you're more likely to see more buck action. Okay. And so the same thing, you find that another bedding area, you're doing the same thing. You're looking for those rubs and those scrapes, and you're going to walk that section back. Okay. If you don't find another bedding area, that's okay. Just try to figure out, ask yourself, why are the deer moving using these trails? What purpose does it serve for them? Okay. And then our next step is step number 5. We're going to mark our trees. So we're going to try to identify the tree that we're going to use. It's going to be downwind of bedding. It's going to have some trails moving from, across that area, hopefully rubs and scrapes. We're going to sit back 25, 30 yards. And that's where our kill tree is going to be. There's a lot to break down on kill tree stuff. but we're just talking basics here. And I think if you do these basics, you're going to up your odds. Okay. So we're going to mark that tree. Step number 6, we're going to turn on our tracker on our onX, and we're going to walk back, which is really going to identify our way to that tree. So we're going to mark it. We're going to turn it on at that tree. We've marked that tree. We've taken pictures of it. It's in our notes. We're walking back now either to the 2-track that we're going to use to get off and go there. If you don't have a 2-track, then we're walking it back to some kind of, you can mark it all the way back to your car if you want, or just some kind of location that okay, once I hit here, I'm taking this trail that I have marked on my onX, and that's going to lead me to my kill tree. And then we're going to repeat. You're going to do this as many times as you can, as much time that you have allowed. Now, the more time you make for this and the more spots you find and the more you get used to seeing this stuff, the faster you're going to evolve and you're going to naturally move on to the next steps. This is a very basic plan, but this basic plan will work for you. Now, one thing you have to think about is in my area, is the caliber of buck that I'm looking for there. And so if it is great, then use this plan and it should work for you. If it's not, then you may have to think about leaving state. And that's what I've done. This is really what I've done out of state. Except I do it in real time. So for up until 2 years ago, I would eScout, I would map scout online, go to the spot, usually November 4th. I would scout my way in and find exactly what I'm telling you to look for. I would set up the exact same way, downwind. I was always in a funnel or some kind of pinch point, and I would just wait there. And within 10 days on most hunts, I would have a crack at 120 inch, 130 inch buck. But I'm in states where those bucks are readily available. And that wasn't Michigan for me. I was going out of state. So you have to kind of decide, are you going out of state? Are you making that investment? You can go do this now. I'm going to go out of state this weekend and do some of the scouting, looking for the same stuff. So this is a recipe that will work. If it doesn't work in the first year, don't give up on it. You're going to learn more. You're going to see more deer. You're going to see more bucks, and you just repeat it again next year, and it will start to come together for you. And this is, a pretty simplistic approach. Some people listening to this who have, way more experience than me may think that I'm, might be giving some too simple of a recipe, or that there's another approach. I guarantee there is another approach to killing bucks. I don't think that I've got it nailed down or that I'm anything special. In the beginning, I say I'm the white belt sensei, but I know this does work. This will work for you. It's worked for a lot of people. And yeah, go out and do this now and repeat it as many times as you can. At least have 6 of these locations. At least the more you have, the better. Okay. Go expand out to public if you have to. Don't just stick to where you're at. If it doesn't have bedding, if it's not going to have buck movement during the rut, if it doesn't funnel from one, which it might, you may not have bedding on your property, but you may have bedding on the adjacent properties, and deer may funnel through your property. That's a killer spot too. But you're going to want to find more, so you have more options. All right, that's it for this installment of Do This Now. I will give you a heads up. We are going to soon, not next month, but the month after, we're going to talk about trail cameras. And so if you don't have trail cameras, that's okay. You can buy some cheap ones, and you don't need a lot. We're not going to talk about doing 30 trail cameras, but this right here is the Tasco. It's like $30. It works. Pick up 3 to 5 of these. If you can only afford one, pick up one, because we're gonna, with the data that we find, we're gonna go back and install some cameras, and we're gonna talk about the right way to do that and the wrong way and the things to avoid. That's gonna be a couple months down the road, so you're gonna want to have these. Next month we will have some other Do This Now information, and I will be prompt on that. We will have that out in April, but Do This Now. Go out and pre-scout. This right here is the most crucial time. If you skip this step, everything I'm going to talk about going forward isn't going to help you. This is what you need to do right now. Awesome. Thanks a lot for coming back to the dojo and listening today. And we'll be putting out podcasts every Thursday, and really appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support, and give me some feedback. Feel free to hit me up on the DMs on Instagram. I will respond. And if you have any questions, if you need any clarification, if you disagree with me, that's fine too. Put it out there. It's good to have this kind of conversation. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. Have a good one.